Welcome to Workplace Psychology with Dr. Martha Greidick. I'm Dr. Martha Greidick. This podcast examines a wide variety of work-related issues through the lens of industrial and organizational psychology. And while many of the topics discussed here may be seen as intended for white-collar employees and their employers, in reality, the ideas presented here are applicable across organizations and industries. Additionally, many of the topics discussed here may be applicable outside of the workplace. I encourage you to examine what's presented here, apply what makes sense to you, and simply discard the rest. No job is without challenges. And of course, some jobs come with more challenges than others, and some experiences include more frequent challenges than others. But no matter how we look at it, every job has its challenges. What's another word for challenge? It could be problem. It depends on how you look at it. In essence, it depends on who you ask. Whether the person that you ask tends to be more of a glass half full or a glass half empty type of person in how they tend to view things. So if you tend to be a little more pessimistic in nature, you probably see things more as problems than challenges, whereas someone who tends to be more positive in how they view things might see things more as challenges rather than as problems. So the bottom line is, it's a matter of perspective. But can every problem be seen as a challenge instead? Well, again, that depends on who you ask. It's all about perception. But what it comes down to is that it's in your best interest to start looking at situations more as challenges rather than problems, if you're not already doing so. Looking at things as a challenge rather than a problem can be a much better experience in that it can provide a certain amount of motivation to get through that challenge. That attitude alone, the attitude of looking at things as challenges rather than problems, can make you more resilient in the long run. You're more likely to see the situation as a learning experience. You may become more resourceful. And getting through challenges can give you a sense of accomplishment. On the other hand, when you're looking at things as problems rather than challenges, that can be pretty discouraging, defeating in some sense. It can deplete your energy and affect your motivation. It can even lead to a victim mentality where you simply give up. And of course, this kind of way of approaching things where you look at situations more as problems rather than challenges, it can add more stress to your life. So as you can see, looking at things as a challenge rather than a problem can provide you with a much better starting point and put you in a better position. But remember that this is all about perception, so it's important that you pay attention to your own perception tendencies. Which side of that spectrum are you on? Do you tend to view things as problems, things that are difficult to attend to solve, or do you see situations more as challenges, something to get through and be successful on the other end? Changing your perception won't happen overnight. It will take some time and effort on your part, but it's absolutely doable. It's a matter of identifying where you are in terms of what lens you tend to use to evaluate situations, whether it's the challenge lens or the problem lens, and then deciding to make a change. Once you make that decision to make a change, it's a matter of catching yourself every time you're evaluating a certain situation and correcting yourself as needed to make sure that you work on your perspective as it relates to that particular situation. It's just like any habit, really. It will take time and effort. But how can you better prepare yourself to make this perceptual shift within your own experience? Well, there are different things that you can do to put yourself in a better position. One thing that you may want to do is to seek out some feedback regarding the situation at hand from a neutral party, someone who is level-headed and reasonable and neutral in how they assess situations. So, in other words, don't ask the people who tend to be negative, who tend to see things as problems rather than challenges, because as you well know, they will give you the kind of feedback that will only reinforce the problem rather than challenge lens when viewing the situation in question. So seek out some feedback from the right kind of people who will help you to see a situation for what it is. Another thing that you can do as you're evaluating any situation is you can ask for other people's help in terms of collaboration. When you tackle something, if you have to do it on your own, it may very easily be seen as a problem because it could be too much or overwhelming. But if you recruit some help from others and collaborate, turn it into team effort, then whatever the situation may be could be much easier seen as a challenge rather than a problem. Remember that there are many instances where a task of any kind, especially tasks that tend to be complex or fairly large in size or maybe fairly complex, could be much more manageable if they're tackled in a team, with a team approach rather than doing everything by yourself. So if it's an option for you to collaborate and align with some others that could become part of your team, then by all means, tackle the issue at hand with the help of other people. And that in itself can help you to shift your focus or the lens through which you are looking at the situation from viewing it as a problem to seeing it as a challenge. Seek out resources, and that could mean anything. Resources could be anything from information to tools or to people. But seeking out resources can help you to better handle any situation, any task, and make it more of a challenge rather than a problem. When we lack resources, it's a lot more difficult to tackle, well, anything, big or small. So seek out resources as appropriate and see if that can help you to shift your perception of a task or situation from viewing it as a problem to seeing it as more of a challenge. Consider looking at things that you encounter as learning opportunities. Learning opportunities are everywhere, both in our work environment and in our personal environments. But sometimes it takes a shift in our perception so that we see the situation or the task as a learning opportunity. And a learning opportunity is much closer to being a challenge in its nature, something that is welcomed and something that can be tackled successfully, rather than a problem which can seem overwhelming and maybe even as something that has no resolution. And of course, learning opportunities come in many flavors. You can learn things such as new tasks, which can then simply be added to your toolbox of personal knowledge and personal resources that you have for future issues. It can also be seen as a learning experience, something to take with you as you move forward in time that you can then draw from, have a certain amount of wisdom from that experience for any future experiences. The more practice you have with learning and acquiring new tools for your toolbox, and the more history that you have with successfully getting through challenges of all kinds and successfully completing tasks of all kinds, the more resilient you become and the stronger you become and better suited you become for any future challenges. And that in itself is simply living life, whether that's at the workplace or outside of your job. Facing challenges head on, welcoming them, and getting through them successfully is all part of living life and gaining experience and wisdom from living your life and getting through those challenges. As this episode comes to an end, let's review what was discussed. No job is without challenges, but whether you see them as challenges or as problems makes a big difference and largely depends on your perception and your tendencies of how you view things. Looking at things as challenges can be advantageous in that it can provide a certain sense of motivation and can-do attitude and allow you to succeed. Whereas seeing things as problems can have the opposite effect, where it can be defeating and deplete your energy, drain your motivation, and even lead you to give up and put you in a state of mind that gives you certain victim state of mind. It's important to pay attention to how you tend to perceive things. And if you are someone who views things as problems more often than as challenges, it may be time to make a change and adjust that lens of perception so that you can benefit from looking at things and tackling things as challenges rather than as problems. It's important to seek out the input from neutral parties, level-headed people who can help you to really view a situation for what it is. It's also important to align yourself with others and to collaborate with others so that you have a much better chance of success as you take on any challenge that comes your way. Seeking out resources is also a good idea. After all, having the right tools is key when it comes to resolving any issue that comes before us. And of course, it helps to look at any situation as a learning opportunity, whether it's learning by gaining wisdom or learning a new skill. Both are something that you can use down the road in the future to tackle new situations and new tasks. A learning opportunity can be priceless. As the week unfolds, I invite you to consider how you tend to view situations or tasks that you face at work and also in your personal life. Do you tend to see things as problems, which by their very nature makes them more difficult to resolve? Or do you welcome them more as challenges, something to conquer so that you have a sense of accomplishment afterwards? If you tend to be more of the problem-focused person, I strongly encourage you that you view things more as challenges and see if that makes your experience a better one. But remember, as with anything else, it will take time and effort on your part. Thank you for joining me today. Please subscribe to this podcast. I hope that you will join me again next time. Until then, I wish you joy and well-being.